And approval of agenda and minutes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda minutes?
I make.
I'm just gonna say so moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
School committee chairperson comments. I don't have any today. Moving right on to community comments. Not many people in the room, so we'll go right over. Is there anyone online?
Pretty sure things are online too.
All right. People must be busy cleaning up the snow or something. Moving on to student comments. Over to you.
All right, so last week in honor of National Popcorn Day, the NIMUX JED team made a little bags of popcorn for students and teachers during their breaks. It was a great way for everyone to come together during the cold days. And then last week, the boys basketball team participated in the Fight Like a Kid games against Oxford, organized by Team Ava to support children battling cancer. With this season's games honoring Gretel, a 15-year-old from Sutton battling leukemia. And then tomorrow, freshmen and juniors will be completing a signs of suicide training and screening program designed to increase the awareness of suicide risk and depression. And then sophomores and seniors will be taking part in lessons centered around mental health.
What is the JED team? What does that stand for? JED.
It's a JED high school, so it's part of a mental health organization group after his dad started it after his son had passed away. And so we signed on probably like 2 to 3 years ago. And so then you establish a team at your school. And so they do a ton of programming related to mental health awareness, do a nice job. That it's a national organization, but there are some state organizations too, like Active Minds, et cetera, that were associated with it as well. Good question.
Any other questions or comments for the student rep? All right, moving on. Now, there was some discussion about moving the middle school budget presentation up. Is there a motion for that? Continue on as is.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to bring up the middle school presentation.
There's a motion to move the middle school budget presentation up before the superintendent and administrative reports. For a second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
I know I don't have a vote, but I want to. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for being accommodated. You got it. Great.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. We're here to present the middle school budget. Slide 2 of the presentation just outlines the budget process, which you're familiar with. It's a collaborative process at the building level and also with district leadership. I've really appreciated the support and input and the feedback that we received my first time through the budget cycle here at Mendon-Upton. Sammy, you can go ahead. These couple slides are familiar to you. Slide 5. You know, our goal is really to build a budget that's aligned to the strategic priorities of the district, responsive to the needs of our school community, and that's fiscally responsible. So that brings us to slide 6, and this is our headline. So the Misco Hill FY27 budget proposal prioritizes deeper learning and student supports. It focuses on maintaining staffing stability while making strategic investments in students with disabilities and our English language learners, as well as high quality instructional materials and expanded elective opportunities. This budget is about stability, consistency, and growth, protecting what's working and strengthening our systems that support all learners. So this is our needs assessment. And if I recall, a few months ago, we were sitting here and you asked me what's going well at Misco and what could need some work. So here, here's what I've learned so far. So there's a lot of strengths in Misco. First, the middle school model allows teams of teachers to build strong relationships with students and collaborate to meet their academic and social emotional needs. Second, I absolutely love the emphasis on project-based authentic learning because that promotes deeper learning, critical thinking, and student agency. Additionally, the adoption of high-quality instructional materials in ELA and math has strengthened instructional coherence, while enrichment opportunities in the arts, athletics, and activities support the whole child, which is a critical focus during the middle school years. And I really enjoyed going to all the concerts through the winter season. The semester one art show was dynamite, and it's just a true testament to the work that our teachers put in and day out with our students. And most importantly, our staff is deeply committed. They are collaborative, creative problem solvers who are dedicated to supporting students. So those are some of the many strengths at MISCO. As far as areas of weakness, or I like to call them areas of growth, we're continuing to refine how we structure student supports for students with disabilities and English language learners, particularly around scheduling and service delivery. We are experiencing large special education caseloads, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But scheduling and staffing limitations result in students missing tier 1 instructions, and that impacts equitable access to core learning. And finally, we're working to strengthen systems for social emotional learning and the implementation of high quality instructional materials. Lots of opportunities to note. We have meaningful opportunities to build on our strengths. For example, redesigning our master schedule to protect tier 1 instruction and strengthen collaboration with the high school to reduce inefficiencies. Also expanding whole child supports through SEL programming, leveraging our Inspired Innovation Center and Library Media Center, and expanding our project-based elective and career-connected learning opportunities. And we're also excited about the opportunities that lie ahead with continuing the capital investments that are strengthening our facilities. And the threats that are outside of our control, we continue to see increased enrollment, growing numbers of students on IEPs, and a rising population of students with limited English proficiency, all which require proactive planning and sustainable systems. So that's our SWOT analysis. Moving on to our financial snapshot over the past couple of years, this slide just reflects some of the elements included in our budget and the changes over the past couple of years. The school leadership salaries covers the entire main office, principal, assistant principal, and our administrative assistants. The leadership services include supplies, dues, and professional development. And this line now includes a national conference for administration that was previously not in the middle school budget, but it was in the budget of other schools. The instructional salaries represents the salaries of our staff. It includes their cost of living adjustments, steps and lanes, and then the three strategic positions that we are proposing in the FY27 budget. The instructional materials line includes curriculum materials and resources. This includes the new ELA curriculum, which Dr. Kirkpatrick will talk about. But this figure looks large because it represents a 6-year contract for curriculum resources in grades 5 through 8. So that's not just a 1-year adjustment, that's over 6 years. And other school services reflects an efficiency because the lunch recess paras have been reallocated and are now funded through a grant rather than the general budget. No change in athletics, and then you'll see the total expenditures and the dollar change from FY26 to FY27. Okay, so strategic requests. Next year, we anticipate an enrollment of about 688 students. This is not counting school choice or move-ins. We're welcoming a class of 181 fifth graders, which will be our largest class. Going back a few years, MISCO enrollment has increased by about 50 students in the last 3 or 4 years. So that's a big increase in student population. Our priorities for staffing are adding a 1.0 FTE special education teacher. MISCO currently serves 109 students on IEPs, including 29 students receiving reading services. We anticipate 30 students with IEPs will be entering 5th grade next year. And we currently staff 1 special educator per grade level, which is essential to maintaining inclusive practices and responsive support. And their caseloads run from 16 to 25 students, and 25 is on the high end. We are proposing an additional special education teacher, and this is a position that we had at MISCO previously. This investment strengthens our ability to deliver specially designed instruction, maintain appropriate caseloads, and expand effective co-teaching models across grade levels. It also allows for more collaboration between general education teachers and special education teachers, which increases student access to tier 1 instruction. As caseloads increase, the demands of case management, including IEP development, progress reporting, evaluation timelines, coordination with general ed staff, and family communication, that also increases and grows substantially. So without the appropriate staffing levels, the district assumes increased compliance risk and limits its ability to provide timely, individualized supports to students. The next position is a 0.5 FTE EL teacher. MISCO currently supports 18 English language learners with an increasing number of students requiring more intensive language instruction and targeted interventions. 4 of these students are new to the district this year, while others continue to need sustained support to access grade level content. As you know, we share an EL teacher with Nipmuc, and with the high school also requesting additional EL staffing, the shared model limits our ability to provide consistent services and requires students to be pulled from their tier 1 instruction. And that means that sometimes in their service delivery, they could be pulled from an ELA class, a math class, science, social studies, WIN, or one of their electives to receive their EL support. So adding a 0.5 FTE EL teacher allows us to ensure that the students are receiving the mandated amount of time for services. It strengthens push-in services and gives us flexibility that it's not always pull out. The teacher could push into classes to support English language learners, and also helps maintain appropriate caseloads and provide high quality language support within classrooms. And this also gives our EL teacher the opportunity to collaborate with grade level teachers to make sure that students are receiving the support in their regular classes. Okay, the last request that we added to our budget was, and we're still imagining this a little bit, but we would like to add an elective teacher. We were thinking business and informational technology, but we're still kind of imagining how this would play out. But this position has been previously proposed and continues to be a growing need at MISCO. Due to scheduling constraints, several electives like health, technology, PE, art, and Spanish are currently running with class sizes at about 27 students. And large elective classes limit or make it harder to do hands-on learning. It reduces individual feedback, safety oversight. And, these are courses that are supposed to foster creativity, skill building, and student agency, because this is where they have choice when it comes to their schedule. That if they like art, they can take art electives. If they want to do PE, they can take PE electives. So this investment expands equitable access to hands-on learning experiences. It maximizes the use of our Inspired Innovation Center and or our Library Media Center. And it supports our initiative for project-based learning and career-connected learning. And it strengthens alignment with high school pathways and creates a little pipeline to the pathways that they've developed here at Nipmuc while building transferable future-ready skills for students. Did I hit it all? Okay. All right. The next slide shows some of our investments in high quality instructional materials. The way we implement high quality instructional materials and curriculum resources to add the programming over time. We establish a curriculum review cycle, test the resources through field testing, usually supported by grants. Then we bring back our recommendations to the committee, like you'll see with the ELA curriculum tonight. And little by little, we add resources. And this is kind of where we are right now. For math, we have ST Math, Bridges, PBL, which is project-based learning, and Desmos in math. So we have a lot of HQIM in the math department. As you can see, like some of these pictures, the first one is 7th graders presenting their co-op stores that they designed in math class recently. This is a PBL project. This was 7th grade. And they designed co-op stores, they created a product line, and they set prices, they calculated costs, profit, revenue, they managed their budgets, they used ratios, percentages, and they presented what they learned through graphs and photos, and they had baked goods and all sorts of things to share. And they did a student showcase last week. So that was really cool to participate in. We also have students working on Bridges in 5th grade, their math program. They were comparing decimals, which was larger, which was smaller, with manipulatives. We have the 8th grade using the ELA Amplify program during the pilot. And it was really neat to see in those classes the deep discussions that they were having. And this one in particular was a question examining the morality behind Frankenstein's monster. So they would work through the program. There were some collaborative aspects to it. There were some really deep discussions, and the kids were really engaged in it, and they did a nice job. The next photo is actually fifth grade students acting as scientists. They recently had a visit from the Blackstone River Watershed Association, and this is in preparation for them to build their own water filters, which is a great hands-on project for our fifth graders that we're looking forward to seeing this week. And then finally, we visited a class where they were implementing investigating history in fifth grade, and they read and analyzed information about historical figures, and they wrote scripts as historical figures from the American Revolution, and they were presenting them. What would George Washington say? What would the response be? So it was really neat to see. And these curriculum resources are really valuable to leveling up the authentic learning experiences and deeper learning experiences that we're having at the middle school. We also have the possibility of piloting science and social studies curricula in FY27 with the support of grant funding. Thank you. Okay. So this slide just shows where possible, we've reallocated existing resources, leveraged grant funding, and prioritized staffing over non-essential expenditures. It just shows that, you know, as a district, we try to be strategic and fiscally responsible when it comes to moving positions around to support where the needs are. Is there anything you want to add from a historical perspective on this one?
Yeah, and I think as we're getting closer to current day, like we were very strategic about strengthening the teaming model. So we moved positions back so that we had 8 fifth grade teachers and created a strong transition for our new fifth graders. We restored 8 eighth grade teachers by being opportunistic and resourceful with extra resources from high school and being able to reallocate back to middle school. So I feel like we were very resourceful in those pieces. And now I think we're now looking at, okay, how do we look at our special ed need within MISCO?
Grants.
And this is just a quick snapshot of our ability to participate in some of the grants to fund some of the needs within our school. We have several active grants, including our Applied Learning Leadership Institute grant through the 1-8 Foundation, our DESE Hate Crime and Anti-Bias grant through DESE, as well as even our MUFE grant for the rock band equipment that we were able to showcase last year with, and that was an addition and expansion of an elective opportunity that we're currently offering to our 7th graders. And just listing, as Anne mentioned, we have a couple of prospective grant opportunities when we were talking about the addition of high quality instructional materials for math and ELA. There are other great opportunities also within social studies and science that we're currently exploring for ways to grants to cover not only the curricula or maybe the professional development as well, as we're onboarding that.
Okay, so key performance outcomes. All right, so these are aligned with our district priorities. These investments build on what's already working at MISCO and align directly with the priorities. So our focus on deeper learning continues to expand through project-based learning. And that, like I said, strengthens critical thinking, collaboration, and student agency. By adding an elective teacher, we really want to develop the career-connected pathways and align the middle school learning with the high school programs and future-ready skills. We're seeing strong instructional outcomes with the HQIM 6th grade math. MCAS achievement has returned to pre-COVID levels, which is great to see. And like I said, the ELA pilot demonstrated high engagement and strong standards alignment. As far as priority 3 goes, our work centers on access and belonging. With these proposed positions, we're working to increase access to tier 1 instruction while strengthening the delivery of specialized supports, ensuring students receive what they need while being included in their learning community. And then we are also working on building meaningful partnerships with organizations outside of school. We also look forward to welcoming Eversource in for 6th grade science in April. So these are the opportunities that provide students with authentic real world learning experience and connect the classroom to the outside world. The return on investment. This allows us to respond to student needs proactively rather than reactively. And it supports the acceleration for students who need it most while maintaining high expectations for all learners. So our goals include keeping students in tier 1 instruction while delivering specialized supports, strengthening inclusive and co-teaching practices that benefit all learners, expanding electives to boost engagement and relevance, building career-ready and transferable skills aligned to the high school pathways, ensuring consistent access to high-quality instructional materials, and really help us to meet student needs while working to close their performance gap. And the last 3 slides are the risk mitigation slides, like what would happen if we chose not to fund these positions. We feel strongly that maintaining appropriate staffing levels protects the class sizes, supports inclusive and co-teaching models, preserves our elective offerings, and allows the teachers to continue to offer deeper learning experiences for students. These investments reduce systemic stressors and ensure that students are supported academically, socially, and behaviorally, especially during the critical middle school years. I think MISCO is making progress in a lot of areas. We need to focus on the middle school years because this is when the gaps, academic gaps, can widen or they can shrink. This is when engagement deepens or it declines. And this is when students start forming the pathways towards their future. And we want to provide learning experiences that support students and prepare them for high school. We really think, we've made a lot of momentum this year. We've gained a lot of momentum, and we really just want to have some consistency for our students and make sure that their needs are being met. Questions?
I'll ask one question about the elective teacher. But did you say the average elective size is 27 students, or it gets to 27?
Yeah, it gets to 27. So there are certain sections of, especially in 8th grade and 7th grade, where certain blocks, because of how the schedule is configured, it rises from 27 to 30. So we have some PE classes of over 30. But we have health classes, art classes, tech, Spanish, over 27, and both in 8th grade and in 7th grade.
I guess you don't have to give me the full answer to this question, but I'll just ask the beginning part. The last slide there, I just read through it real quick, the elective teacher. It seems like a pretty cool spot, given everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Is this role more important than other electives we have today?
That's a great question. I think it's a compliment to it. And I think it gives the kids who might have that entrepreneurial spirit an opportunity to delve into business, marketing. And we really love the idea of connecting with the high school pathway because they've worked so hard to build up their pathways here. So I know it's hard to rank them in order of importance or impact, but when we were thinking about it, what would kids want to take? What would help drive them towards a career pathway or something like that? So we were kind of trying to imagine what would be functional and interesting to them.
Good answer. Didn't really answer the question.
I was gonna push back.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll
Former Spanish teacher, I can't.
I'll answer the question. I think the answer to the question is yes.
Yeah.
I think where the world is going today and the ability to do 3D printing, laser engravers, there's a lot of these skills, students that are STEM based, engineering focused, whatever, that I won't give you my exact opinion, but I think this class would be better than some that we have today. But we don't get to offer a lot of price. That's my advice. That's what we're here for.
Oh, I agree.
That's what
Let's
we
push
get
back.
paid for.
I thought I'd say my response, but I do agree with Eric on that point. I wanted to provide some clarification on the budget thing from subcommittee, the budget subcommittee, because not everyone here is on the subcommittee. But the high quality instructional material costs, right now we hit a year and we've got this big expense for high quality instructional material. And on budget subcommittee, we're working with Jay and figuring out if we can kind of amortize that over the life of the instructional material. So we don't see that huge spike and now we've got to eat it in the budget for that 1 year. Can we amortize it over the life of the 6 years of the instructional material? One thing, and I feel like I've heard about this over the past year and a half, but the master scheduling plan, I'd love to see a presentation on what it means at the middle school, elementary schools, and the high school, and across the district. Because like I heard a lot about it, and we're making some progress. But I feel like if we had a full plan and then laid out how we're gonna get to that point, or what is the North Star? And how we're gonna get there. And I know we're super busy with capital planning projects and working on the budget. So it's another big task, but I think that would be something I would be interested in seeing and would be useful, so we can figure out what the optimized schedule looks like.
I do have one highlight on it in my mid-year progress. And I actually pulled info from their schedule meeting that they just had. Because I thought their visual was pretty telling on the work, so we can fill you in, but we can get you some of the resources too, just to give you more info on where we're at in that process.
And lastly, on my list, there was a slide about I think it's the threats, increasing enrollment. My understanding was enrollment was pretty stagnant. Is there like a fourth grade or third grade cohort that's coming up? That
So
you expect to be
The
bigger?
fifth grade cohort is bigger.
Okay.
It's about 20 students more than what we have in fifth grade rate.
And we generally see an increase in fifth grade as well with infants. That's generally
Good time.
a good time for families to be joining the district.
Yeah, it's the overall enrollment for the district that's been stable or declining
Right,
a little
right.
bit, but the middle school,
Impacted.
not so much right
Even adding teachers in the board of the year with this, fourth grade.
Yeah.
My daughter's in that cohort, so I've been paying more attention to that every year. And I've noticed we add a teacher every year, or at least we rearrange to
Yeah.
get a.
Constant shifting.
And can I jump into just one thing on the position to the business info tech is, we were kind of looking at something like this a couple of years ago too, and trying to think about what's the perfect, position. It's almost like with emerging technology and with the changes and everything going on, we want to be able to, if we can get that position, it really supports our strategic goals around the career connected learning, but also we haven't been able to address, we have the media center up and running, but we could work on some information literacy as a course, or, we have the IIC there, so there's a different kind of creative course. We're trying to build pathways. It could be something like it's business tech that can prepare students heading to the high school and the various pathways. So I don't know if we'll, when we're able to have it and find the MacGyver it, in the sense of being able to do lots of different things, but there's a lot of potential with it, kind of to your point too, something that can evolve with it. So it would be great.
Questions?
I'll call for Jay real quick. I still miss Mr. Raz, and we had table saws and band saws and everything in home, or not home ec, but industrial arts.
Yeah,
Tech.
Sorry.
so is this one of those back in the day stories?
Not this one. That was at middle school.
From that class.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you.
I'm wondering if the chair pleases, you might want to have Cheryl go next, just to have both of the departments. All right? Yeah. Okay. Just a suggestion,
Sure.
that way we can keep the two departmental ones together, because they build off one another.
You can go to Cheryl's. We're gonna keep you honest on your presentation. No, it doesn't mean you get to go extra.
Oh, yeah, what does that mean?
Both of us.
Do you want me to sit here or up there?
You get to sit
Wherever you want.
All right.
Setting her
You getting it?
Curriculum and instructional budgets.
Yep, that's it. Thanks, Sam. No worries.
Curveball.
All right, so, we can just flip through the first couple. We're at the budget cycle. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna, share some strategic alignment needs and needs assessment with you. And here's my tagline for the Office of Teaching and Learning. In order to create the systems and supports, which is really the fundamental thing that my department does, that enables the district to deliver on our strategic priorities, we need students to have excellent teachers and teachers to have excellent supports and resources, including the connection to the community, which so that we can partner together to help the students grow. And so I will be asking you for close to $400,000 for district requests that I'll go over. And I'll also be kind of double dutying it here and sharing with you a little bit more about the curriculum resource piece from a district perspective so that you can see that. And I'll bucket them in three main areas. First, instructional resources, the requests. Second, professional support, specifically to be able to create deeper learning experiences for our students every day. And then our continued development of strategic systems that are the tools that enable educators to be able to adjust practices and provide effective interventions. So this is my kind of SWOT analysis, but I kind of envisioned it more as a bridge to enabling the future that we want. So we've done really well in Mendon-Upton, and as I was preparing for this presentation, I was like getting kind of proud, you know, like we've been able to put data systems in place that our educators regularly use and regularly use in team meetings. We've been able to improve our access to high quality curriculum instructions. We've added a number of curriculum resources at the middle school already. And we've also provided PD to enable the use of those resources. And most importantly, we have amazing teachers here. We have amazing educators who are smart and creative, and they actually are interested in helping each other learn and grow, and they're dedicated to their students. So on that kind of a foundation, when I look at our needs, it's normal and natural. We need additional curriculum resources to do some things that we haven't been able to do, to deliver ELA and in Spanish language acquisition in a way that's true to the science of reading, which is a very systematic and explicit way of reading instruction, and also to be able to deliver HQIMs in places that we've never had them before. We also need to be able to support our educators in the implementation of these resources. And we need to be able to support our educators when it comes to developing and utilizing new assessments so that they can see how their students are doing in real time and not just wait until the end of a unit or something like that. And we also need to think about strategic systems challenges, which include continual training on data systems, sorry, Jay, and developing systems such as our MTSS continually and our data in our dashboards to show the data that we need the most. The future that we envision is a future where all classrooms have high quality instructional resources and where we have unified experiences in Mendon-Upton, including in certain courses like Algebra 1, utilizing the same resources, that we have ELA and Spanish immersion resources that actually connect, and pre-K through 8 are a similar resource to be able to build on from year to year. That we think about the portrait of a learner and the language of the portrait of a learner in the skills that are standards-based, and that we can tie the standards and the portrait of a learner together so that we can develop those skills and see how they're developed over time for students. And that we continue to develop our MTSS to support students through our student success process. So the next slide. And the next one. So here's my ask, really. The ask is, I put the FY 26 budget next to the 27 budget. You'll see that the 27 budget, for the resources, the district budget, including stipends, contracts, and supplies, is a little bit larger than FY 26. I'll explain why in a second. The district staff requests are about the same amount, but a little bit different proportion. And the district in the school resources, you'll see are a big difference from FY 26. But as Anne was just alluding to, that's a little misleading. So I'm going to try to break down the numbers a little so that you can see what it really means and kind of what that amortized amount that you were just talking about, Jim, kind of looks like. So here's the teaching and learning budget. You can see in each of the lines of the budget, and I just kind of shorthanded this. The first one is mostly about stipends for teacher leadership, mentors, stipends for summer curriculum work, which is really important work and has been supported by grants that I've reduced it by about 34% this year. For partner induced, we've reduced that budget as well. Supplies, we've reduced that budget as well. The only portion of the budget that has increased has been the contracts. Now, what contracts cover is they cover systems such as Vector, which is our EdEval system, Safe Schools, which is annual training and also training for students in terms of bullying and safety and stuff like that. It also covers systems like Atlas, which is our curriculum software, and assessments such as Panorama and now Apple that we've put into this. So when it says contracts, contracts include some of these things that are just kind of like the bread and butter of what we do too. But it also includes contracts for professional development and professional learning. And as I'll mention in a second, we've been really fortunate with grants that have been able to provide us with money to support our professional learning in the district. And I increased our budget marginally, like very, I think, reasonably, given the amount of money that we stand to lose from decreasing grant acquisitions. This is the rationale for the staffing. And so the ask there is a little bit over 200,000. The first ask is for a secondary curriculum coordinator, which I'm going to explain as an ask that is about making sure that we get a return on our investment, because we have resources that we'll be implementing. We have assessments that need to be developed, especially at the secondary level. And we need some capacity to be able to help our teacher leaders who do not have release periods or anything like that, be able to lead the work with their colleagues. And so this position would be a position that is akin to a coach, but more focused on the development and the use of systems and assessments. The cost would probably be about 120, I'm guessing, and it would serve over 1,000. This person would serve over 1,000 students, and as I said, its strategic value is sustainable support for data use and curriculum development. The second ask is for an EL teacher. This EL teacher is a needs-based request with the current schedule. In fact, last year we were cited in our TFM review in the area of staffing capacity for English learners. And we've put a lot of work and a lot of collaboration into thinking about that. One of our challenges is the different schedules at the different buildings, particularly the middle and the high school, that don't allow a single staff member to effectively work in both places given the different schedules. One is a 7-day schedule, one is a 6-day schedule. They have different hours that they work in. So it's been really hard to do that. But I have to say too, when you look at the data, our EL teachers have done amazing work and continue to do amazing work. They put their heart and souls into it, but every school understands this request. And so at this point, the request is to enable the districts to have one EL teacher in each building. Now, what that will also do for us, in addition to serving the English learners in our district, is it will provide capacity to be able to push into classrooms to help our classroom teachers think about how to best implement their SEI strategies, which is also something that is good for all students. And as the district continues to think about how to improve student performance, and specifically for students with special needs and English learners, this position is not just needs-based, it's also strategic.
Sure, if you might ask a question now, or do you want to wait till
Yep. No, that's fine.
hit pause? I get it. No. You showed us in the previous third slide, it's going from 200K to 210K. It looks like these are both incremental positions. Are there two other positions going away to make these happen?
No, the ask is 210. The slide before was the FY26 ask, which was a little bit different. It wasn't the same exact.
So those aren't actuals.
This was what the request was in the budget. We never got the 200,000. It
Got
was
it.
just the request.
I was thinking fiscal year
Yep.
26 was your run rate,
Yeah.
that was actuals.
Nope, I requested it and I wanted to show you that I requested it.
So
and I
it's
didn't get it.
zero, it's zero this year.
That's right.
Got it. Is it zero for all the buckets?
No, it's the actual FY26 is the 153.
Okay,
We should probably, just because we're posting this after, that's not clear. I didn't notice that before. I don't know how I didn't notice it, but I didn't. It sounds like you pointed it out. We should note that because that's not
it looks like. a
clear,
10K.
because all the other ones we've been doing like
Yeah, it looks like a
actuals.
net 10, but it's an ask difference.
So should I just put requested here? Does that make it better?
Sure, we can play around with that,
All right.
but just. make it-
I put in zero.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
what
it
the
is
200K
actually
is-
0, and we can maybe just put that it was requested in the years they were requested, because we've actually requested the curriculum year beyond, like.
Yeah.
last year.
That's right.
And the EL teacher as well has come up.
Yep.
The last number of years,
I see what you're
so we
saying.
can maybe just put that in words, that way if someone reads it, they know what that
Put in
is.
zero, put an asterisk down below, requested multiple years ago.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sorry.
That's a
No,
good
that's all
question, thank you.
This gives you just a sense of the situation that we're in with grants, and it's a good one. It's a really positive situation, except what we're seeing is that our grant access is diminishing. And it's what I tried to do is show you in numbers how much it's diminished in the last few years. And we've also had a number of grants even before FY25. What these grants do, and I just picked the grants that are curriculum related, is they allow us to purchase resources that aren't part of the operational budget. They allow us to deliver professional development. They allow us to pay our teachers for building curriculum resources over the summer in the form of stipends. So they really have meaningful impact that we have not had to tax the operating budget with. And so I think it's fair to say that we're benefiting tremendously by these grants. In fact, on the next slide, I tried to give a little bit of a sense of how much, and it is like the grants that we received in FY25 was like 158% increase to what the operational budget was. And it also allows us to supplant some of the things that we might have paid for with the operational budget before we ended up getting a grant too. So these grants have been pretty significant. And I think that, I would love your feedback about how to tell that story, because it's a really important story for this district.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with grants, right, they expire, and I'd be interested to see what the alternative cost would be, like, what's the return on investment from a grant, because once the grant ends, it needs to be rolled into operating. And so you either have to plan for it or use it on something that's not. And so what would that cost be without the grant, and why does it make sense to roll it into operating moving forward?
Yeah, so I think actually we've been really wise with how we've spent the grants. We have not spent the grants on staff and then had to realize potentially a decrease. We have worked on long-term contracts that allow us to, over time, gradually build in resources into the grant. And then we have taken advantage of some of these grants to do stuff that we just wouldn't have had the money to do otherwise. build our data systems, for example. Like that's something that wasn't budgeted initially. And we've been able to develop this in a way that, you know, educators are using the system and using it widely now. So, yeah, so the rest of the story that I tell here is about the decrease in the grants. We still will probably have some grants, but next year's grant picture right now is we're looking at a significant potential decrease in federal grants, and the competitive grants. Not too many of them have come out. We've applied for the couple that have, but not too many of them have come out yet this year. So
Is that last column for the fiscal year 20, is it supposed to be, say, the year?
No, and this is
So
where-
what's the difference between the last two columns?
yeah, thanks, Matt. So this is where I am trying to show you how, like, what the grant situation really means for next year. And so what I'm doing in the final column of this table is I'm taking the 706,000, which is the amount for resources, and I'm amortizing a portion of that request to give us an estimate of what 1 year's worth, not the 6-year contract that Anne referred to before, but what 1 year's cost with these resources would actually be. And I wanted to show you too that even in this circumstance, right, but we're talking about 1 year's worth of resources there, and it changes the bottom line quite a bit. The grants are now just a 33% bump in our operational budget, not the 158% that we saw 2 years ago, if we get what we expected. But let's go on to the next slide. This is where I share that again. This now, it's not the last column, Matt, but it's the middle one. And what I did is I broke this down for the curriculum resources for Nipmuc, Misco Hill, Clough, and Memorial. And what you see is what the FY27 request is for each school. And that instructional resource request includes a line that's called text and supplies, okay, which mostly text. The supplies come in other budget lines, and also instructional technology. And I combined those two lines for each school because I think that they represent really the outlay of the what we use to help students learn, the resources that we use in schools. And so the FY27 request is the request not amortized. And you'll see that it's pretty large and pretty big differences from FY26 to 27, especially at Misco Hill, Clough, and Memorial. And the reason for that is because of the ELA resources that we're proposing and the SI resources. And so that, as Anne mentioned, represents a 6-year contract. Why a 6-year contract? Is because they reduce the price significantly for us utilizing a resource if we go with a longer term contract. So it's to our advantage fiscally to do that. And also because if we introduce a resource, we want to be able to support it. We want teachers to be able to use it and know that it's there for a longer period of time, and not that it might disappear and they won't be able to use it. So that's why those longer term contracts are important, and why we've priced that out. But when I amortize it, you'll see actually that the requests for each school actually seem pretty reasonable. In fact, Nipmuc's seems to go down. And then what I did is I noted the change, and I also tried to create a figure that represents the cost per student per course. And so what I did at Nipmuc and Misco Hill is I divided the request, the amortized request, by the number of students at the school, and then divided it by 5, imagining they were taking 5 courses. What you see is that the request, even though it looks large, it really boils down to about $16 per course, or $20 per course at Nipmuc and Misco. And then for the elementary schools, I didn't bother to divide it by 5. So that's like the entire experience for an elementary school student, their whole day. So that gives you a sense of how to think about these requests in a way that I think really shows that it's a reasonable, it's it's a reasonable ask. And even though it seems like it's a big percentage jump and a difference in ask, it really boils down to, you know, $20 per course at the secondary level, which, you know, I think most people wouldn't argue with at all.
So maybe this is called the budget subcommittee, but are we able to pay it over a 6-year, we have to get a 6-year contract, are we paying it over a 6-year period? Or are we paying it upfront and then just trying to make it look less?
It depends. You can pay it all up front or spread it over 3 years, I think, for the most part.
Through the vendor.
Yeah.
But also Jay is investigating financing options that might help too. Obviously, there's interest involved in that, but that might also be able to parlay, you know, to be utilized in negotiating the costs.
And then this is just for the ELA, HQIMs. If was it math, STEM being reviewed right now, if they come back and pilot something next year and then want to buy new curricula, that's also going to be another big, you know, so.
That has the potential to be, but I would say, like, you know, just knowing the lay of the land a little bit here with curriculum resources, ELA tends to be the most expensive. ELA and math, you know, they're core, yep, they're the 2 core subjects. History and science, actually there are good resources that are open source. Not that open source is free, like, you know, you still pay for the actual tangible resources, but it, you know,
We're doing some open source, which is mostly free for art, science and social studies as options as they go through the process.
So I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around this 1-year amortized number and whether it actually makes sense to amortize it over in that way if we can't actually split the costs, but, you know, budget for the costs in that way. And if we have other funds coming forward, coming in the coming years that would similarly. So I'm not sure I really that it makes sense to me to do it that way, but I guess I'll question this.
okay, but if you think of what, you know, if there's a question there that you think would be valuable to answer in this presentation, please let me know and I'll try to figure it out for you.
I think the response was of trying to break it down was that for the average person looking at the large number, it's hard to know, why is it 600,000? Why is it 200,000? What is 3? And what it can kind of play out to be either by year or by student, just to try to give it more context, because it can feel right up front like a lot. So that was the purpose.
But we're also going to be giving the towns a bill in March or May or whatever that has them paying the $600,000, not the.
We talked about this for 45 minutes at budget committee, so
I'll leave it to you guys.
all right, sounds good. I'm just-
The bill won't be, I mean, we will be able to break it down. It won't be that upfront. So like, as we put it forward, we're saying this is what the total cost is. We will be able to break it down at, you know, worst case, it's over the 3 years, which we have in the past for all the other curriculum, but, you know, good suggestions came forward that maybe there's other options that we could look at to do it over all years. And if we can do that, then that might be a good option for us to start looking into, which we hadn't.
And ideally, right, like you're amortizing it internally, it's really just a matter of how you run your books, and you're putting whatever 1/6 of that money into an account, and really you can earn interest on an account, and year 6 comes and it's not a $600,000 expense because you've got the 600, you know, scaled across all of the different HQIM.
But we're not buying these HQIMs in 6 years, we're buying them this year.
This year, yes,
So-
but so we gotta take a hit and we gotta plan for the
Yeah.
future.
Michelle, my only comment, I would just footnote, given the fact the first 2 rows are different than the bottom 2, just either make them the same or footnote it if we're gonna put these online.
Yeah, yeah,
When we put them
because
online.
the top 2 look small compared to the
Right.
more,
Yep.
but those are
But they're all about the
whole
same.
day. Yeah.
All right, so reductions, reallocations, and efficiencies. I think this is an important slide because I think it's really important that we make sure that our community knows that we have really realized some efficiencies in the last number of years. In terms of our digital resources, we have really analyzed them. We've noticed overlaps for digital resources that often came as a result of the pandemic and stuff like that, and also underutilized resources. And we've not only made note, but we've ended contracts. We've reallocated to certain other applications so that we have streamlined apps and we have to support just one, right? So in the past we had Lexia and we had IXL, and now we can support MyPath in place of that. So that's an example of a reallocation. Also, we've used it, I think this is an efficiency as well. We've used grants to develop the kernels of these systems. Like, it hasn't had to start from scratch with our operational funds. We've been able to develop the bones and the support and start the supports on grant funding as well. And instructional partners has been a big part of that in there, and especially at the elementary level, where they have now been wrapped into their instructional leadership teams. That has been an addition to our support of these resources that I think has been really helpful. In terms of ongoing needs, the reason why I think this fits on this slide is because we have really been going for a long time without these resources. So it's not a matter of us having saved money in this case, but having gone without is an instance where we haven't cost the district any additional money. But I do think it's important. And when you think about strategy moving forward, in order to be able to realize the best impact in now being the middle of the strategic plan, I think it's important to think about these ways that these like full-time educators could really help our educators implement the resources and develop the systems they need for kids. And so I'll keep going, Sam. And so what are the outcomes that we've seen that show that our investments so far have been working? Well, first, we have seen some great outcomes in elementary math. And I think the way to think about this ELA investment is to think about it as scaling the success that we've seen in math. So many of these, our bridges, for example, it took a few years to kind of wrap our heads around it, get the scope and sequence. But what you see now is you see growth that dwarfs the growth in most other communities in Massachusetts, in especially elementary math. ELA resources, now with what we've learned about what it takes to be able to make those resources really work, I think we'll be able to scale on that success. And I think that our pilot is also a really good example of the success, because we had over 30 educators working together to test out different resources. And then they came together and almost unanimously voted this resource for this organization. And that doesn't happen. Like, I have people stopping me in conferences, like, how did that happen? And it's not me, it's the teachers. And it's the teachers coming together and saying, this is really what makes the most sense for us. So we have momentum behind that too, that I think is really important. In terms of our PD and systems, we have our whole student reviews happening now, which are now also supported by our data systems in a way that I never even imagined when we first put these systems in place. And we have been able to create a shared language with our portrait of a learner. And we're ready now to take the next step with thinking about how to think about assessing, and we're already starting at the high school, how to assess those competencies and how to really embed them in the curriculum. So when we think about future success, I would imagine with the investments that we've requested, we'd be looking at improvements in ELA proficiency and growth, that we would be able to identify new ways of assessments, including SI, where we are looking for being able to assess students over time with their language acquisition. And also we'll see continued math growth, because at the high school level, one of the main drivers of their request is Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry curriculum. And so our return on investments, I believe that in the long term, the investment into instructional resources will reduce the cost of interventions. When we have high quality tier 1 instruction, when there's writing instruction embedded in the resources, when it's scientific and progresses students through the actual pieces, explicit pieces of reading instruction and learning how to read, this will bear out in not needing as many ultimately interventions, specialists, etc. As I mentioned, it'll help us scale the success of math, and it's a reasonable cost. The 47 per student per year is just for the ELA resources. So I broke that out. Maybe that's confusing here. So I just wanted to make sure you knew. The other was kind of like an average of everything divided by students. But if you just take out the ELA resources, you're talking about $47 per student per year. And the professional support will also help us maximize our investment, because if we have these resources but we don't have the support, it'll be harder to implement. Not impossible, but it'll take longer. And so we want to be able to get those returns to our kids immediately. And finally, with our improved strategic systems, we'll be able to utilize new and better data like we're building with the whole student review, and also with our response time for interventions. When our kids need something and we see the data in the system, we'll be able to respond to it right away. So I think that's it, right? All right. If we don't get this funding, as I mentioned, I think that it'll be a longer term to see the improvements in ELA. We've got great teachers, as I mentioned, but it is really, they need resources, and they don't have all the resources that they need right now. We're piecing it together with some of the things that we've done, like bringing in foundations and bringing in the well writing support. It's also potentially putting our students at a disadvantage compared to other districts, because most districts have or are looking to acquire high quality curriculum resources for their ELA. There's also the potential of lost staff because of our stretching our staff thin with schedules in the EL department. There is the potential to have insufficient capacity to accelerate our work and our strategic plans if we don't invest in personnel to do that. And I also believe that if we don't have the resources, that we will experience challenges embedding the POL in our curriculum, because we need to be able to think about how the POL and the standards come together. And we need to be able to support our development of assessments in places where we don't have common assessments right now. So now I think I'm done.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a
Questions?
question
Yeah.
that's a little weird. I apologize for this. So what do you tell a parent when you're talking about instructional resources and really improving the quality of education? It raises the level of education for all of the kids. And I think we've been actually, I don't have any data on this, but I have the feeling like we've been improving the quality of education for the last 25 or 30 years. Because there's an overlap when you get to college, man. They sit around on their butts for like 1 or 2 semesters, repeating the same things that they learned in high school. And I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but essentially just sit around doing the courses that are required by the college, because it's almost like they want the money. It's like, why can't you just skip us beyond this stuff? You know? What do you say to the parent who is saying, why are we spending all this money to accelerate the kids when they're going to get taught this stuff in college anyway?
Well, I don't think I've ever had that question, honestly, Sean. I
I'm
was
just
like,
I don't know if that's always the case. though.
yeah.
Okay.
I feel like the
You know, it
question I
depends on
mostly
where
get.
you go, like, you know, sometimes you have a lot more choice, sometimes you get, because our students at Nipmuc are accelerated, they don't have to take those courses because of their AP. It doesn't
Well,
work at all the
APs,
schools,
APs, yeah.
but you know, if we are increasing our early college opportunities, et cetera, like they, you know, they can get out of other ones or test out depending where you go, but it's so dependent on the school that you go to.
Sean, I'm gonna answer your question.
Oh my
I'm
God.
gonna answer your question, so I do it. I went to college, felt the same way freshman year, was a breeze. It was awesome. And you know what it allowed me to do? To be a leader amongst the cohort. And that in and of itself has value. And when you step into college and you're the ace student, you make a name for yourself within that cohort, within that work. So I think there's value in that.
It's interesting.
It's
I
interesting.
had a similar but different perspective in that I also took a number of courses in college that I had finished in high school and took them again my first semester. And it was actually in my first semester of college that I taking classes that I had already taken. I learned how to be a college student, how to study for those exams, my high school exams. It was the same material, but it's taught at a different pace, and the examinations, the homework, everything was a lot harder. And so if I didn't have the foundation of having already learned a lot of that stuff, I found that transition much more difficult than I did having repeated stuff.
Okay, so, I mean, I obviously buy into all of this stuff. I'm not trying to oppose it. I'm just trying to say, in terms of someone who's paying taxes and struggling with the expenses, we have to be able to justify that we want to move education forward, increase the level and capability of our students as we move forward in providing education. So I'm just wondering what the answer to that is.
No,
Oh, no.
and still back then. So when she had the slide for the curricular resources, I told her, that's why she had the pictures and, you know, had the stories. I said, sometimes we need to tell the story of the impact that it has on students in classroom. And I said, remember when we went into the history class and we saw investigating history and the students were comparing and were acting that out and how deep that learning was in comparison to a textbook where someone's going to teach Cheryl how to turn.
Time's up.
She sabotaged my phone.
Anyways,
More on that later.
more on that later. Hi, everybody at home. But so that was like one example. And one other time we went into an English class and I said, I have been in these classes for a decade. This is the best. I said, that's the best lesson I've ever seen. Like the depth of what they were talking about. And we walked out and they said, yes, that's CKLA. They're doing the pilot. It was because of some of the advanced. So like it's providing those authentic, deeper learning skills. That's what we're trying to level up with the PBL example that you had and those skills that are going to keep coming through, because I don't think higher ed has caught up. Some schools have, but not all schools, right? And what they have as the type of classroom environment, but they're moving that way, you know. And that's, I've seen such growth with the strong teachers, training them, and now getting some of these really high quality materials right in front of them. Impactful. I could tell you 1,000 stories, but you know, I was with her on some of those. I said, tell that story just so people can kind of hear. It's hard to bring it to life sometimes because I think for us, we remember textbooks and the note taking and the very old traditional sense of instruction that still does live a little bit higher ed, what I can see so far,
Oh, yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
But we're trying not to have that be all that we're all about here.
Okay, well, I just asked that.
You got it. Other questions?
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right, on to superintendent and administrative reports. Budgeted 20 minutes for this.
On it. All right, it's all broken up into smaller sections tonight instead of all of one, so I can be able to post and share it later. So first for the district update and cycle through. See if we can see, I wanted to share a couple of highlights. Our district was highlighted in Education Week article just on the 22nd, and I put the link in there in the background notes so you're able to see it. Liz Garden is often, they seek her out for being interviewed a lot, and this is related to digital habits. So it was a quick read. I get this. I was glad she pointed out because I hadn't noticed that during the article, but that's a national publication there. Also last week, Mendon-Upton was represented on a panel. It was at the MASS Superintendent Conference, and it was a panel called One Size Does Not Fit All at the high school. It was about MTSS, and we were chosen for some of our success within data with students with greater needs. And so they asked us if we could present. So John, Marianne, and Cheryl presented at that panel to superintendents and assistant superintendents. They did a great job. The next slide. We may have mentioned this, I think the high school might have mentioned this last time, and I put the whole news article press release that's going out on this, but Nipmuc Regional received gold recognition in the College Board's 2025 AP School Honor Roll. So you can read all about that. And just saw in an update, thought this was pretty cool for making some connections. So that's a picture of Jacob Wyckoff, I guess is how you say Wyckoff, I don't know, from WBZ, and they are having an all-school assembly and bringing him in. He'll be talking about the weather, which I think it's probably a good week for that. And what's nice about when they run these all-school assemblies, they're led by the student council at the elementary school, so that's happening at club. Big highlight at Misco Hill Middle School, we have Project 351 ambassadors. We have Emma Layden and Evan Lucy. In case you're not aware, Project 351 is a nonprofit organization that unites an 8th grade ambassador from each of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts for a year-long journey of service and leadership. This youth-led movement for change is powered by kindness, compassion, humility, and gratitude. And then Emma and Evan were selected by their teachers for demonstrating these qualities and for being leaders who make a positive impact on their school community. So on the 17th, they traveled to Boston for the launch day, and they participated in high impact service for Service Village in Dorchester, packing care packages and meals, making Annie's kindness blankets, creating cards for the Mass Military Heroes Fund. And overall, for those few hours of service, the ambassadors at the service site impacted 18,525 lives. So congratulations to them. This is something that we haven't really had too many ambassadors, but we're so fortunate to have Anne here with us, who has worked with them for so many years, and be able to kind of get this off the ground. Just, you know, when we have our conferences in the summer, MASS also partners with Project 351. The best part of every conference that I've ever been to is when they get up and speak. And the students, I'd much rather listen to them all day. They are incredible speakers. The kind of skills that they learn in leadership is awesome. So thank you for that. And a couple just upcoming events. We have, don't forget, the new fundraiser, the MURC Dream Teams playing the Wizards on Saturday. Tickets are still available, and if you volunteer, I think you get in for free. Memorial is going to be hosting their family math night this Wednesday. That's part of their school improvement goals and related to our strategic plan. And students will collect Olympic rings as they choose rooms to participate in, and can leave with their very own gold medal. We also have 6 parents who are bringing their math careers to life for students at that, and we're really thankful for them giving their time. And finally, this time of year is when we start to, it's hard to believe, but start planning for next year. We have the kindergarten information nights for parents and guardians are taking place 28th, 29th. And let's see, yep, that's 6 o'clock for both of those nights. We have, let's see, Memorial is on Thursday night and Clough is on Wednesday. And on the 3rd, we have the Spanish immersion kindergarten info night, which is virtual. And you can click on that, the link, and push that out too for anyone who might be interested in learning about Spanish immersion.
What was the shout out from the Northeastern professor at the Tri-County Superintendent Roundtable? Who said that Northeastern professor was a keynote
Oh,
speaker and
did I add
mentioned-
that into my notes? Was
No.
that in my notes?
Not tonight's notes.
Oh, in the background notes?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I went to the Tri-County roundtable, so I go to 2 different superintendent roundtables when I can. So it's going, and the session was on AI, that's my professional goal, so we'll hear more about it next time, but I was there and he was running a session and he had us all introduce ourselves, what do we want to learn? He interrupted me because I started to speak, I'm Maureen Cohen and Mendon-Upton, and he said, oh, to the whole group, Mendon-Upton, they're doing a lot with AI. Yeah, I keep reading about them in all the news. He must have Googled some of us or saw us on the news. Or, we had those news
That's pretty
articles
cool,
at the beginning of the year, so it was pretty funny. And then I said, yeah, my goal, we're working on it. Yeah, so, and we just showed up and it was kind of tangentially related as well. We're out there, getting out there.
Cool.
All right. That was quick, right?
Yeah, not bad.
Thank
Was it
you.
20 minutes? I think
Crushed it.
you beat the 20-minute deadline.
Well, I have another presentation, so that was. I broke them up. All right, let's jump over to this one, which is the mid-year action plans. Because I know we have lots of presentations and different topics tonight, I'm taking the approach of just some high-level couple highlights. Thank you for pulling that up there. Put it in front of me too. In the background notes, I just gave you the 5 main goals. That way you have the full goal on there, and I didn't put them into the presentation here. So I'll begin with deeper learning. This was the list of the action steps I shared at the beginning of the year, just the high level action steps, and everything that I highlight are the few areas that I'm giving you some highlights on, just so you know how that's going to work. On the next slide, on progress. It's not your full answer to your scheduling question, but it is part of the story around scheduling. We have established our priorities as a district around what we're looking for changes in our secondary school schedules. And this is what I took this image out of the middle school presentation that they just had with their scheduling team, and they have a series of building based. So we had a meeting together to launch it into the second part of the year in early January, and then the schools are meeting frequently. Then we're coming back together to bring all those ideas together and to continue to test that out. For a timeline, as of right now, I mean, we are shooting for having something by the end of next year. It's possible there could be something smaller that wouldn't need to be negotiated, or would be slight changes or things that we could do that could happen from this year into next year. But we imagine that the whole process is going to take us through all next year. And it has been, we've been working on it for a while, but if you recall, I talked about this at the last meeting, but since you asked, I just want to elaborate a little bit more. We kind of paused our process because we were able to be into different DESE training sessions around scheduling. So we joined one last year, and then that's what led us to kind of go back and come up with our priorities and our vision. We're almost starting backwards at each of the schools. So we came together as a district in May, we came back now. And then we're also in one this year related to English language learners and students on IEPs. And that's why you're hearing a lot of the language. We realize we're pulling our students because of our schedule constraints. We're pulling them out of tier 1 instruction. That's where you hear a lot of people talking about it. It's been an identified problem that came out of our full analysis of our schedules. All right.
To answer your question, Jim, though, that was like your North Star, that slide right there.
Yeah. And we have another document too that we can share out. We have the main district priorities, but then we have some parameters, and then we have what the schools are working on. So it start big, and then we're breaking it down. All right, so heading into a deeper learning highlight, one of the first action steps is the further development of our deeper learning toolkit. We developed our deeper learning framework last year and identified agency, authenticity, reflection, revision, and collaboration. And then each of the schools started to work on it. Now, obviously, the high school had been a little bit ahead on authenticity. You've heard about it for the last couple of years. Each of the schools has taken on a different aspect, and they're building out these toolkits. So when you hear that Misco Hills talking about discourse and collaboration and work with the ally group, that's what they're working on. Or we just had a session over at Clough not too long ago that the instructional partners were then, talking to them and training the staff around reflection and revision. And that's connected to student led conferences, for example, and working on reflecting. So we're pretty excited about the work that they're doing, and they continue to do that. Instructional partners are doing a great job. The high quality curriculum instruction goal, a lot of repeats because it does all overlap. The biggest highlights we have is the selection of ELA and then the science work with science. So on the next slide, I cannot emphasize enough how proud I am of having been someone who had sat in that seat and had to lead teams through math reviews, science reviews, social studies review, ELA review a couple times, to have K-8 agree upon a high quality instructional materials is pretty powerful. And I've already we've all talked about some of the potential impact we're already seeing by some of the piloted materials, but just really proud of their work and the unified approach that they have. We've never had a unified ELA instructional curriculum K-8 in this district, as far as I know. It will have a huge impact. Next one, science curriculum review, self-study. Ryan's doing a great job of leading this group in the study, and they have given highlights in the past meetings. If you can remember, talked about visioning. You tend to start with visioning and beliefs about what you want to see. You unpack and look at some of the standards. That's one of the steps of what you're looking for. Then you start to look at the different types of curriculum that are out there. And recently, in some of the updates I've shared with you from Ryan and his department work around this, is they've observed other schools. They've gone to talk to different teachers. They went to a training related to supporting this work. So they're on their way for making lots of good progress there. We have a lot under equity, inclusion, and well-being for me to highlight. This is the list of all the action steps. Go to the next slide. You've heard a lot about our whole student reviews, but I can't bring this forward enough. This is actually when we had the panel on MTSS, that we were fully able to describe to other schools that they were asking us the most about. The fact that we're able to develop these reviews. In the pictures, you'll see, what's nice is we're at the point, it used to be that we were starting the process as leaders and training and working through it. Now you have teachers and staff who are leading the process. And on this last PD day, that's on the bottom, at Memorial, you had teachers working on it for the whole PD day, and they wish they had more hours, and tons of positive feedback of the work of doing the whole student reviews and dedicating a chunk of time. Nipmuc up top, that's them, some of the team teaching some of their colleagues about the process, and then they went off, and I spoke about that last year when they had it, and they have an awesome process. Something that I'm super proud about is the relaunch of CPAC. I know we mentioned it, we talked about it, Frank mentioned it, but from going from not really having one that was operating fully the last couple of years, and then it was kind of something we said with Frank and talked about, like, what's your experience? And he came in, and right away we had a family night. We had a meeting with people who might be interested in getting interest, and they have a meeting tonight. They didn't mean to have a conflict, but we moved our meeting, so it normally wouldn't be on a school committee night. And they're having a meeting tonight, and just up and running. He's having monthly meetings with the leaders, and just it's really great, really awesome that we have that. Next up, it's a small, sorry, same slide, if you could go back, the SST alignment. We have the revisions of the DCAP that we do about every 4 years, and we're linking our DCAP revisions with our SST process and really working on our processes district-wide and then being able to communicate that out. I know it's a little small to see because it's just like a little screenshot. When we have the full DCAP, you'll be able to access all of it, but just give you a sense of some of the work that Cheryl is leading with other members of the team as well on that. This has been mentioned before, but I just wanted to bring it forward. One thing that, and I just was in a meeting today and I heard a teacher talk about, oh, it's so great that we have the DCAP and the PAL where we can go and use it. So I actually heard someone talking about using it today rather than, hey, it's something we created, which is kind of neat in a meeting. One thing that makes it impactful is that teachers are able to go in and say, hey, you know, I'm looking for ideas on how to, you know, improve this lesson or help this student, and it feeds out elements of the DCAP. So we've always had a really strong DCAP, but you have to kind of know what page to go to. So this tool that Ryan helped develop and model has been really effective, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback about that now that people are using it. Jumping into community support. You should be pretty familiar with most of what we're doing. It's focused on capital, budget. We talked about a mascot last meeting as well. Other things we talked about that are in there, the digitized attendance, etc. What I'm going to just highlight, just more of a reminder on the next slide, is we do have ongoing capital project updates. I periodically get asked, how's it going? And I'll give an update, or Jay will give an update, but then I try to redirect to this page, which would be something all of us should do. At the end of every month, I'll put in all of the updates of all the presentations that we have. We're being very intentional by presenting and having at every meeting an update related to capital, so then we can feed it into there as well. But the amount of time that Jay and I are spending, and Sean, he's joining a lot of these meetings too, in these meetings is, how many hours a week you think we got going on?
700,
Yeah.
800, something like
Yeah,
that.
a lot, pretty regularly, a lot going on, and we'll continue to give you updates in a little bit. We just launched the mascot rebranding at the last meeting. Chris is starting to form a committee for Schmidt, and I'm in my next newsletter that's going out pretty soon. I'm going to put an update just so people are aware of that as well. So those are the main highlights. And then finally, student performance and some of the action steps. If you recall, we added this goal on this year. It wasn't in the strategic plan, but we wanted to really put a spotlight on student performance. I think it's making an impact because I can hear when people are presenting and talking some of the language about the work and the focus areas, and we're kind of getting a little bit more narrow in some of our focus and growth. And let's see, let's go to the next page and then we'll talk about it. But remember, that's a 2-year goal around performance, but these are some of our starting points. First, a lot of partnering with families. You've heard it a few times, like the 1,000,000 words or less. No one does this. I'm telling you, I don't know of any district that does this. Asking parents to share about their kids and then have that be part of a database, in a place for I can pull up and learn about a student in a strength-based way with parent input. I mean, the fact that these are the types of things we talk about when we present, because it's different. We're just beginning with the strengths, and I think it's really powerful. All the elements that we're adding into the database that we're supporting with the budget of open architects, and then training we're providing our teachers and our staff. At the beginning of the year, talked about the student first language and rolling that out and really focusing in about how we talk about students, how we talk about supporting students, being really strength-based. And we continue to come back to that. That's more about culture, but really important and something that we've had follow-up on. Other areas, I haven't talked yet too much about SDI or especially design instruction, but some of our action steps that we have are about reviewing IEPs, which is a process that we've been doing to see what we have in there for SDI. Also training teachers, also adding some of this into OA, so we have more of a bank of what these strategies are, so then we can follow up and use them. This is an area that we identified that was an area for growth for us, so we're having really targeted work. And then Cheryl's been working on the development of the MTSS website. And it's, in progress. She continues to add to it. By the end of the year, we'll have all of the links in there so families can see. And then she also will be incorporating some of the staff links as well. So we're excited to be able to communicate publicly on the website also about all the things that we bring up in the meetings here related to MTSF. That is my highlights for the mid-year progress.
Boy, that was a record. It was a record. It was like 8:19 to 8:33. I was keeping track.
I meant to look at the time. Was that pretty good?
That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
I tried to. That's good. Questions?
One quick question.
Yep.
And this kind of goes back to some of the stuff Cheryl was talking about. When these systems and things that we provide teachers to like million words or new systems that they have like open architects, how are we quantifying usage? Like, do we know, all right, 100 teachers have gone and read a million words, or there's X number of teachers in open architects? Like, how are we evaluating that teachers are using the resources or accessing things?
One, I can say they are because I've observed them, but not quantified it. So I'll say that we have observed them. Is there a way to go in and do you know if there's a way
Well,
like
I
to
think
see
that-
for logins or anything?
Not like time, that's,
Yeah.
it's not a system that like
Okay.
clocks, like
Yeah.
user, the way that I would quantify it is by like tallying up the number of minutes that teams are meeting. And it's not every meeting that they have, but most team meetings in the elementary school, they're bringing up data. And it depends on what assessment we just did, whether it's the iReady data, whether it's the panorama data, whatever, but they're looking at that so that they can think about what's next.
It's used for different purposes, I guess, right? So when we had the whole student review, they're spending hours going in and putting and updating information in. Other times we may be tracking individual students and targeting their specific needs. Other times we may have just had all the panorama data finished and now we're gonna go and we're gonna do like a systemic review of our data.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see, maybe, I don't know, maybe a poll or feedback from teachers to see what they find valuable or stack rank things. I'll give an example. Just today, I found something I broke at work, a feature I broke probably 4 weeks ago. And I looked and said, oh, it's been broken for 4 weeks. I guess no one's actually using that feature. So now we can rip it out. It's not supported. Not saying that there is stuff like that, but it would be nice to know what we're offering, if it's being used, to what extent, so we can kind of measure what's the return.
Other questions? Okay. So next up is
Jay.
budget. Okay, so budget updates. Nothing.
Time to shine, Jay.
Budget's done, we're all set.
Under 10 minutes.
That's right. It's only. We gonna go with the presentation or your highlights, or how do you want to do this? A lot of what we're gonna probably report on tonight was presented to the budget subcommittee. Was that last week? Is it when we did that? So we're gonna review a couple of things.
We definitely wanted to be able to do the big headlines around health insurance. Some of the changes from the last time we presented on the budget year on a whole was in December. So we wanted to come back to it publicly because right now is when I'm starting to do like further communications about the budget to staff, to community. Want to make sure it's in front of you first.
So the big news is tomorrow, supposedly the governor should be releasing the budget, governor's budget. There was some preliminary stuff that came out last week that said that, I guess in her State of the Commonwealth speech, mentioned that the minimum per pupil aid would be $75 a student, where right now we're budgeting 30, so there should be a little bit of extra money there. They also talked about transportation being funded at a higher level than it's been in the past. And I got an email yesterday that a cherry sheet was released yesterday, which I find hard for the Division of Local Services to do when the governor hasn't released the budget, but that was the precaution in the email was cherry sheets, but I wouldn't use these numbers because the governor's budget hasn't come out yet. But those cherry sheets showed about an additional $100,000 in state revenue. So that's a good sign. But we'll find out tomorrow for real where it's going to go. So again, you know, the caveat we always say is this is preliminary. It will change tomorrow. So the gap continues to grow, unfortunately, at this particular point in time, mostly because as I continue to go through and review things, I find things that either got missed or weren't in the initial budget. So we're looking, actually, as of tonight, that's down to just under 4.7. It's 4.699. Nice salesman number. So that's kind of where we're at now. I started over the weekend and I was working on it today. I'm going through every single line item now, double checking to make sure everything is there, putting in like approved amounts, making reductions in certain places. So that's the next step that we have to go through to see if we can get it down to a better, more manageable gap. The big challenges this year, health insurance is one of our biggest challenges. We'll talk about that in a second. I don't know if you want to talk about
Sure, the federal
stuff.
funding instability impacts the state funding. They may hold on to more of their state funding as opposed to giving it out in grants or in other ways until they get more security around what's coming out of the federal government. As Cheryl alluded to, we've heard that it might be reduced, the federal funding, although I did just see a federal update about a week ago that said it was pretty stable, which was really good news because in October to November, with all the cuts that they were making, I think I'm mentioning here, we thought it might be cut.
As far as the funding formula, you know, this is a very nice and polite way of saying that state funding is generally earmarked toward lower income communities. Mendon-Upton are not lower income communities. So we don't get a lot as far as increases from the state. The big one that everybody asks me about is what about the Student Opportunity Act? I heard there's all kinds of money coming out. We've gotten $0 out of that, except for a couple of grants that Cheryl wrote. But beyond that, we've gotten zero.
Which were significant.
Well, the grants were significant, but
We're not getting on.
we're not getting millions of dollars. For example, I'm working with a business manager in Quabbin right now, and I looked to see what their Chapter 70 increase was. And it was like, I don't know, $3 or $4 million. Ours is going to be 100,000. So it just depends on the district.
So we're at the 82.5%
Yes,
limit on the foundation.
target share. We're at target share is 82.5%.
Does that mean that we'll get more money in
No.
the future? No.
Less.
Less.
That means they expect Mendon-Upton to contribute and pay for 82.5% of the cost of education.
But
Where-
only in the foundation budget.
Yes, in the foundation budget, the towns can always give us more, but towns are limited. So that's the structural gap. The cost of running town government is just not any different for town government than it is for a school district. The cost of running that is exceeding the ability to raise revenue on a local level. And it's just the way it is. Health insurance. We talked about this last week. We have a problem this year that we will be able to manage, but it's going to be a difficult one. And that is typically I budget an extra $125,000, $150,000 in the health insurance line because a few people move into the plan during the course of the year. Either, they lose coverage somewhere else, they find that our plan is less expensive or is a better plan. This year, we've had 16 people join onto our plan, it's never happened in all of my time here, which is about 17 years now. It added an additional cost of $366,000 to our budget that was not budgeted. So that ate up the 125 that I budgeted plus another 366 on top of that. We got a 68% increase in our retiree plan for Medicare Advantage. That's another $200,000. So we're currently on health insurance alone running about a $572,000 deficit. We should be able to overcome that, but we have put in place a budget freeze as of a week ago as one of the ways of managing that. And we're just trying to watch everything. I would love to sit here tonight, but I don't think I can anymore and tell you that our snow and ice budgets are doing really well. That may change at the time we're going, so I can't give you that positive news either, but we will get through that. Okay, so that will get taken care of this year, but our plan is a self-funded plan. So the premiums that we charge employees that we collect have to cover the claims that are we're paying out for health insurance up to $175,000 per person. That's where stop loss gap insurance kicks in. Right now, we're trending at about 100 to 110%, which is not a great loss ratio. So all that will get pushed into the premium increase for next year. So where you're gonna see in the budget line, right now, I have 25% as our premium increase. I think it's probably gonna be around 20 ultimately, but right now we're budgeting 25. But it's gonna look like 31% because our lines this year are under budgeted. So that's gonna show a bigger gap. So that's the health insurance update as for now. As far as the trends, 20% is what everybody's looking at. We just met today with some members from Upton, the finance committee, and their interim town manager. He said they're looking at the same 20%. They're in tier 3 and Maya's plan. We're not planning any design changes now. We did reach out to Blue Cross Blue Shield, Harvard Pilgrim, Mass Brigham Health, which are the 3 major carriers. They have all declined to offer us a quote because we've got some fairly high claims and they don't want to take on high claims. Insurance is a great system. And then there's always the GIC, which is something else that we're looking at. So we'll kind of go do a quick update. As far as the rate increases that we've had over the last few years, you can see where Maya has 3 tiers. Maya's Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's a self-funded plan as well. If your loss ratio is low, then you get a certain rate increase. If you're average, you get a middle one. If you're high, you get a higher one. Both Mendon and Upton are in the highest tier right now. The GIC has been there, but our premium increases have been relatively competitive over time. So I think that's a good thing, and especially with the move to the plan we're in now, the rates have been somewhat controlled, but again, we've got to make sure we cover our claims. The GIC, we've learned a little bit more about it, things that I didn't know. So they offer a variety of plans, but their plans are very network specific. So for example, if you were to choose the Health New England network or plan as far as your choice for GIC, you can only see doctors in that network. You can't go outside of it, period. If you want to have a PPO, I think the PPO option is that WellPoint Total Choice that has a couple of options. The plan we currently offer in the Mass Strategic Health Group is Harvard Pilgrim Access America, which you see at the bottom. Our premiums for an individual plan are around $1,100. Those are $1,435 through the GIC. So we're about $350 less than the GIC in their plans. The other thing about the GIC is there's automatically a deductible on the plans, and you cannot use a third-party administrator to pay the deductibles for you. So the employees would have to pay the deductible and then get reimbursed by the district, which means we probably would need to have somebody internally that handles some of that because you'd have a lot of that coming through. It doesn't mean we're never going to look at the GIC because we may have to do that depending on the trends that are going on with health insurance.
Before we move on, any questions
Yeah.
on health insurance?
What
Because
is
that's
that
the main.
Government Insurance Commission or something like that. I don't know exactly. I'm guessing, but you know, we're full acronyms here. So. On the revenue side, right now, these have not changed from what, I don't know if we presented these to the school committee a month ago, but we did to the budget subcommittee. Those will change a little bit tomorrow. The numbers that I saw on the cherry sheet that they did release had our chapter 70 at about maybe 60,000 more. Maybe it was about 80,000 because the total increase in state aid was 106,000. That would be great. I mean, it's not going to solve our gap of 4.699 billion, but it'll solve it a little bit. The charter tuition was up a little bit as well, but so was the reimbursement. So they kind of are compatible. So it doesn't really matter. They are what they are. Again, just as a reminder, chapter 70 this year, minimum aid was $150 a student. So if the governor puts in 75, typically the House and the Senate increase that. So we can hope for that, but we won't have that information till long after we've certified our budget in March. State aid growth over the last 16 years has been a little under it's been 1.3%. It's very low. So, again, it just goes to show the state is not going to come and rescue us with any state aid. As far as the local contributions, the thing that we're going to find out tomorrow, and this could really skew everything or it could make things better, is what we really need is for the minimum contribution for both Mendon and Upton to increase at approximately the same proportionate amount. Last year, what happened was, I think Upton had about a $600,000 MLC increase and Mendon had a $200,000 MLC increase. Because of that, it skews the balance of the remainder of the budget that's split by an enrollment. It ended up that Mendon gave us a 0% increase for this fiscal year, and Upton still was at like 6 or 7% and struggled to meet that, that amount. Either way, one town higher than the other one lower skews it and makes it more difficult for us to balance things out. So we have to hope that they'll be matched. Upton was not at target share last year. I don't know if they will be this year. That spreadsheet hasn't been released yet. This is some historical local aid from the towns and their increases. So you can see there were a couple of times where Mendon had a decrease or a zero, and that's again because the MLCs were skewed. Upton had a fairly low one in 24 as well, but other than that, they've been hit a little bit harder over the last few years. And it makes it difficult, I think. You know, we have to understand both town governments, they have to run their governments too. They have expenses. On the district side, we're looking at $175,000 less. That's mostly from transferred from revolving accounts. I'll talk about that in a second, but the bottom line is we dip deeper into those accounts to get through this year so that we wouldn't have to go forward with a budget that was not manageable. We can't continue to do that because again, you're using one-time money for recurring costs, which is not a great practice. We talked about it last year that we were doing that and we kind of knew we were headed this way. So right now our revenue increase is 2.5%. It's a little over $1 million. In the second, on the expenditure side, you'll see why that's a difficult thing to manage. School choice account is very healthy, but as we continue to use that to offset costs, it gets depleted more. We put 1.4 million toward FY26. We can only do $1 million next year. We tend to bring in around $600,000 to $700,000 more than we spend. Is that a better way to say it? Okay. So choice, is a good program for us, but it has to be managed in a certain way. It might decrease a little bit. It's just going to depend on enrollment and where we have spaces. This is a state chart that they give you showing your receiving and sending tuition costs. So you can see we do fairly well with school choice and have. We had a little bit of a dip around the pandemic. We had a fairly substantial dip back in like 2010 when the school budget was in crisis, but we've recovered fairly well. We like to try to continue that trend. Circuit breaker, we got a real bonus at the end of, we got it in July of 25, but it was FY26 that the money came in, but it was an FY25 supplemental payment of $168,000. DOR has said, yes, you can carry that into FY27. So assuming that we can get by without using it this year, increase what we can offset our district tuitions by, $168,000. That's a good thing. It helps offset some of those costs. We've got about 18 kids out of district right now, I believe, but there's always pressure for additional costs. Average tuition for out of district tuition, the lowest one I've seen recently is around $50,000. The highest one that we've seen recently is in $750,000, which is residential type places. But it can be very expensive. They're all going to get a 4% or 3.5% tuition increase. Isn't that what it was always?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least that plus whatever they ask for. They seem to be able to get whatever they want. So they're not like us. E&D is in good shape. We'll be able to appropriate $1 million toward our budget again, but we're continuing to deplete that. I feel like I'm at Skate Palace. Everybody remember Skate Palace? So the bottom line is, again, E&D is one-time funds. It's okay to have it a recurring cost as long as we have money going into E&D. I had hoped that we would be putting some money into E&D at the end of this year. I'm not as optimistic of that now that we have the health insurance issue that popped up. The before, after school and preschool accounts all are programs that bring revenue into the district. That is that transfer in from revolving you see as our revenue line. Again, we were at 375 this year. We have to go back to the 150 that we've traditionally been at for the last 15 or 20 years. And those accounts are starting to get depleted, but again, they'll generate some income as well. The goal for the district is to have 7% of our budget as reserve funds. Upton told us today that they shoot for 10%. I think DOR wants you in the 7 to 10% range. We're around that now. Will we still be there in 2 years? That's hard to say. It depends on what happens over the next couple of years. Ultimately, I'd love to stay at that point, but you can't put money in reserve funds if you need it to actually run the school district. On the expenditure side, our biggest cost factor, we said this last year, we say it every year, is people and employee salaries and benefits. That's the biggest thing that we spend our money on. So between Salaries and health insurance, we're looking at a $3 million increase in the budget on the expenditure side. So you can see where that 1 million in revenue is going to help us with a $3 million increase. We had several new positions proposed that added up to about 845,000. We probably won't obviously be funding all of those positions. I think we've got about 3 or 4 that are targeted that will still remain in the budget. The curriculum piece, you heard Cheryl talk about that, so I don't have to review it again. Building maintenance, which I believe we want to change the name of that to something else, but the bottom line is that's
Like operations.
operation. The bottom line is that's the cost of heating oil and electricity and a little bit of building maintenance. Every time something breaks, I mean, we just had a pump break at Clough. I don't know if it was the circulation pump for the heat or for the water, but you know, it's like a $35,000 pump. Everything costs money. The elevator door needs to be repaired. It's $22,000. There's always some costs that are way beyond what you can imagine. So we need to increase some of those maintenance lines. Now I can tell you the maintenance budget has been level funded for at least the last 12 years. We haven't increased it at all. So we do have to put something into that. Worcester retirement, we got bad news when they released the numbers about a week and a half ago. I had hoped for about an 8% increase. It's actually 10.25, so it's $130,000. Transportation, we've talked about previously here. You approved a new, renegotiation of the contract that should save us a little bit of money, but it's still an additional $128,000. Longevity will get factored in, but it's a minimal increase that we sort of planned on. The athletic piece is mostly transportation to get to a field of play because we're assuming our field will not be playable. All right, so the bottom line is right now that budget increase is about 13.5%. Now, again, we will not be going forward with a 13.5% increase in the budget, but we're going to have to get that to a much more manageable number. We identified some reductions, which I'm starting to put into my line item budget to see where it lands us. So these reflect everything that was requested. We didn't tell anybody no, we just put everything in there, we threw everything up against the wall. We'll see where it lands, and it landed well. I don't need to review the curriculum piece again, I don't think. The operations, these are the specifics. So it's heating fuel, I think last year we were paying $1.67 a gallon. This year we're paying about $2.20 or $2.25 a gallon, which is a great price. I mean, certainly better than I'm getting at my house or most people are getting at their house, but that's an increase in the cost of oil. I can tell you that at Misco on these really cold days, we burn between 300 and 400 gallons per day. So all of you that have a 250-gallon tank in your house, you'd be filling it up twice a day. So it's a lot of oil. Natural gas, we don't have a supply contract right now because the basic supply cost has been less than anything I can lock us into. Electricity, we were paying 9.5 cents a kilowatt for the last 3 years. We're now paying 12.1 cents a kilowatt, which is still a great price, but it's an increase. And then there's some equipment that we need to upgrade. Some of the things like you see the guys with the auto scrubbers on the floors or mops or the vacuums. Vacuums don't last as long as you'd think. So there's some of that equipment has to get upgraded as well. And I will let Maureen talk about some of these things because this is the educational piece. It's not the numbers.
And I'll be quick on this. We have presented kind of the full list, I think, back in December of what all the requests were, and I just did it by category. Now, what we've done a few iterations of organizing it by level services, needs-based, strategic, and competitive, which are kind of all grouped together. Clearly, we don't want to go into reduced services ever. We begin with the level services. If I could get one position, it's the special educator at the middle school, kind of put as the highest priority. There is also a request coming in when Frank comes here about maybe need for a special educator because we have reduced at both middle and high school for the last number of years, bring one back out of high school. We'll talk about that. Grade 3 teacher, that's at Clough. And we had an increased enrollment. So it's 25 students in their grade 2, 25. So they're asking to reduce those class sizes. It wasn't 25 across the board at the end of last year that they've come in during the year. So that is a request. Then when we get into some of the, you know, critical needs-based, we have, I don't not need to talk about the EL teacher. You heard about it a bunch tonight and the other day. Frank, when he comes, he'll talk more about the school psychologist. That was a request for behavioral support, and elementary will present next time to at Memorial to get additional support. But we also need to, our school psychologists are the caseloads of what they have. That's all they can do are the evaluations. And if we'd had another school psychologist, right now we have to pay additional contractual hours, but we'd be able to also provide direct services and maybe help with some of those mental health needs at elementary. And then I won't go through the whole list above. You'll hear it as we continue to go through the presentations, but some of those, when we met, even when we met with some of the Upton officials earlier today, they said, wait a minute, what was on here? What did you ask for last year when you did this presentation? Oh yeah, I remember. You've had that, like tech support has been on there for a number of years, or there are some that have been in there, or the curriculum coordination has been in there for a long time, et cetera. So we talked a little bit about how these are, if we want to grow and be strategic and make the district better and meet all the needs, need some of those above that one as well. And then that's it. Updates for tonight. We'll have a lot more information tomorrow.
Yeah, so the weekly update will give you an update about
Yeah.
where budget landed, assuming that it gets released tomorrow. That's what I'm hearing, so.
And then we have the budget subcommittees next week. Questions on that?
No. But you guys all heard it already, so.
Yeah. And then.
This side of the table heard it, that side of the table.
And last up, we have just a couple of quick updates related to capital.
Okay, I did not put a slide in here for the roof and the HVAC project. I was asking for notes from the last meeting. We meet with them every Thursday. They didn't get back to me today, but bottom line is the bid package is out for the HVAC equipment. I think the bids were due back Friday this week. Is this Friday the 30th? It is, right? So I think they're due back this Friday, so we'll have some information on that. They're working on getting 100% documents ready, but other than that, we're just kind of in that design phase, still working through that. The field project, we got a couple of dates here. So what you were asking about, so the schematic designs did go to the cost estimators on the 23rd. The turf field is going on the 30th. The high school and middle school fields are going on the 30th. I think what they were supposed to have back, I think they were hoping by yesterday, was the cost estimates for the facilities stuff.
Okay.
Because that had already gone to the cost estimate. So that's kind of where we are with some of that field stuff. Some of the things that came up with the fields, again, I think we talked about this a little bit the last time. We're going to need a variance to reduce the number of stalls in the bathrooms. I think you're required a certain number based on 800 seats and bleachers. They can usually reduce that to about half that, and that's the plan. It's pretty typical. I don't think it's a difficult ask, but I think it's something they have to go through. They did have a meeting with the conservation agent from Upton last week with Beals and Thomas and their reps. Ken and Brett were both there. It was a very positive meeting. I mean, there was just generally a feeling that the issues that we're facing with the field can be worked through, which basically is wetlands relocation. Conservation really deals with wetlands. We still have to deal with zoning board as far as the property setback of 50 feet. And that would determine like the location of the bleachers, possibly the location of the concession stand, but I don't think so. And also the track, but they don't look at the track as a structure where there are bleachers and, you know, the press box is a structure. We're going to need a variance from the Board of Health because there's still discussion about whether we have a tight tank or a sewer connection. The engineers are saying that their typical experience is that if you have access to a sewer, town won't let you put a tight tank in, that you have to connect to the sewer. Today, we met with the Upton DPW director was there as the interim town manager. He said that he felt it was a gravity feed to the sewer. So it was more positive feedback. He basically said, before you start designing any pumping chambers, come talk to me. There's ways we can work through this. So that's good. So I believe like a lot of these risks are there. They're not certainly solved, but they still are risks that we have to work our way through. As far as the concession stand, the only thing that caveat is you can't cook in there. There's not going to be any ovens. There'll be a pizza warmer, a microwave, but you can't have anything that requires things to be washed because we're not going to have, otherwise you have to put in a grease trap and a 3-bay sink. And we're not gonna do that because, you know, they'll use a grill if they want to cook burgers or hot dogs or something. So that's the update on the fields, and I included this map again, just in case anybody didn't remember it from 2 weeks ago, and it's kind of a nice colorful map. As far as the facilities, the flooring part will be phased out, you know, mostly at this building. We kind of feel that we can do it during the school year by saying, okay, this wing, we're gonna move all the classes to other available rooms, we're gonna do this wing, and then we're gonna kind of move around. Misco, we can't really get away with that because we just don't have the capacity of the space to do it. So it'll have to get done either in the summer or, you know, the following summer. They may have, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of rooms. They're looking at a 350 kW generator, which should be able to power the entire building. Fortunately, the lead time is about a year, so you won't see a generator until multiple other power failures.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. But it looks like we should be able to do that by doing a 350 kW that powers the whole building. We do eliminate the need for the switchgear because then they can use the current equipment that's there. So that's a positive thing. The engineers involved with this are also working with National Grid to see about getting those transformers replaced. They think it's kind of important. So we'll see where that goes, whether we can get any funding for that. We got one quote for the card access and for changing the core cylinders on the locks, because that's part of that project, is every exterior door is going to have a new core cylinder with new keys. That quote was about $37,000 for the cylinders. The quote I got for the card access was around 95 or 96,000. Unfortunately, didn't have a lot of detail, like what exactly the system is, what the software that has to run on top of it. So we're asking those questions now. And we have another quote coming. We have to try to get 3 quotes. So Ricard is the other company that was supposed to get out here, but we've been having trouble connecting with them out here. The bathrooms, I mean, everybody likes to talk about Misco bathrooms. 7 of them will be redone only because one boys' room was redone by BVT many years ago. Not many years ago, it was pre-pandemic though. So we don't need to do that. I think we have to replace one urinal that was broken off the wall, but the rest of it should be fine. I think a faucet in there was broken as well. Once we get all these cost estimates done, and that ought to be done probably in the next month, we can then start to compare cost estimates to budgeted amounts and see where we land. And I think that's about it on the capital project.
Yeah.
There's not much happening. I mean, there's lots. We meet, you know, as Maureen said, we meet every Thursday with Vertex and Habib and Associates. Thursday is CHA and Civitex. Monday is
And then
Habib.
bonus meetings.
Right. And then we have other meetings around that. So we're talking, I mean, today, we got a question today, you know, so where are we on the capital projects? Well, you know, we're moving along, but it moves slow.
Any questions on Jay's presentations? All right. Next up on the hit list, school calendar draft.
So I shared with you, and you have access to like all of the calendars, so you want to make sure you're on that first tab in there. But it's just a first review and reading and look at for it. I have not shared it yet with the union, which is per contract. I have to do that. So I wanted to see if you had any initial feedback or anything, but I will be sending that to them for feedback as well. The leadership team has reviewed it and put in different open house. Actually, I think I just had one change today of moving Nipmuc open house to one day that is an elementary open house day, and I didn't put it in, so I have to change it. Due to the fields and moving like homecoming and dates, they didn't want to have open house conflicting with it was currently conflicting with like homecoming week and athletics and all the events. So they asked if they could maybe this year have it overlap with elementary. And so I think we're gonna, you know, propose that just because we're running out of days with all their athletic events that they have. Couple changes. Kindergarten starts the same day as the rest of the district. We have done it after the first day, but both that kind of that came before the 2 principals who are here now. After a number of years, they feel like it would just be easier to have everybody start in the same day. They still do things for kindergarten to help them adjust, but just have everyone come on the same day. We we're gonna continue with the full PD day earlier in September, which we found to be effective, especially if we have new resources coming in, if we need to do a lot of training up front. We moved the full PD day to correspond with November 3rd, just because it's midterms and we think we're gonna have a lot here for elections since we use 2 of our schools to do that. And we also want to reduce and help out a little bit with parking because we might be down some of our parking with the construction as well. Let's see. We got feedback from teachers that they didn't really like having the conferences the week before Thanksgiving. It was kind of a lot in that week. So in this, we moved it up to the week of that. It has to be per contract in Thanksgiving unless we, met and agreed that it was in another month, something to look at in the future. I think some people like to have it like early December, but right now it has to be November. So that's where that falls. So those are a couple of highlights. Everything else is pretty much similar to what we've had in the past.
Did you want to ask about the hearing date or?
Okay, yeah. I don't even have the calendar open, so
Oh.
I'm going by memory.
I know the dates.
Yeah, no, the open hearing date we put for the 15th. We could have it on the 22nd. That it would be the 45th day leading up to the Upton town meeting. And we learned just today, so I finished this calendar, yesterday, so I didn't update it today, that Mendon would likely have their town meeting the following week. So it wouldn't be any earlier than that. So we could move it to the 22nd, which gives us like 1 more week. So if you guys think that sounds
I'm
good,
sorry,
then
which month?
March.
March, so
Yeah.
that's Monday's the 16th.
Is it the 16th?
No,
It's on Tuesday.
2027.
Oh, 2020.
So
What?
Yeah.
we're talking about the 26, 27 calendar year.
Ah,
Okay.
no, I follow you.
All right, I'll open it up to you just don't say.
So which
I
month meant year or two?
Yeah. So, okay, there you go.
No,
So I think I might
lose John.
remove the school
Absolutely.
committee to adjust. If you say you want to have it on the 22nd, then I'll just make an adjustment. Our
Seems like a
school
hurry
committee
and rush every year, so take everything.
Yeah.
meeting. This year it's really early.
The thing that's
That's just the way it
changed
is.
is,
Look at the governor.
what's it?
It's the governor election. Because you've always told us that whole thing with the governor's first year in office, even if they're.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They
this
made it
budget
late.
coming out, yeah.
Yeah, but she wouldn't be assuming she got reelected, she wouldn't be in her first year, but I suppose they do have the option of delaying it then.
Even after a reelection.
Right,
So-
but the thing that's changed is Mendon changed its bylaw, so Elena, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's now sometime in the first 2 weeks of May as opposed to like Upton's is the first Thursday in May.
Yeah.
Mendon's always used to be the first Friday, so now Mendon wouldn't be able to do theirs before May 6th, no matter what, because then we'd be out of compliance if we do it for 22nd. But 15th, then you're safe. Jeremy told me today that if he has his say, it would be after that anyway.
You can always move this along.
And Elena's more
Yeah.
powerful than Jeremy, so.
Just
Always move it.
pick a date.
So I'll probably
Yep.
move it to the 22nd to give us more time, and if we need to move it back, then I'll make the
Yeah,
adjustment.
sounds good.
And it does take a little bit to kind of like really look at the details of the calendar. So if you look at it between now and the next meeting, or you have thoughts or something comes up, or you
I'm gonna
didn't think
send a
of it,
reminder.
let me know.
Okay.
And then we'll vote on it at the next meeting, and I'll get the feedback from the union as well, so we can incorporate that.
Cool.
All right. On the school committee, subcommittee comments, we've heard a whole lot about budget. We last met on January 12th. We've heard about the increase in health costs and where we are on the budget development, governor's budget proposal coming out tomorrow. We'll meet again on Wednesday, the 4th, where we'll really start to dig in. Over to Vicky with the policy.
So we met last on January 12th, and we'll be meeting again on February 9th. In the meantime, 2 policies. We're bringing for a second reading tonight, IJR. Move to take a vote to approve both of those policies tonight.
Second,
All in favor of approving policies IJR and DB?
Aye.
Aye.
carries. And that is all for subcommittees. Other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours are none. Future agenda items consist of departmental budget presentations for SSS, elementary and facilities. School calendar, will actually vote on it, and superintendent goals, mid-year progress. With that, is there a motion? Sure.
Motion to adjourn.
Should adjourn by Eric, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Carrie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 9:10.